Good evening. So, March 12th, 2021, Friday update. Bunch of topics to get done here. Springfield. Everybody is patiently awaiting to see what ends up with 3653. We had a meeting down in Springfield yesterday with the state, the Joint Labor Council, our legislative committee, their legislative committees, the lobbyists, et cetera, to kind of decide where we're going to go as a final approach here to attack that bill. The consensus was pretty across the board unanimous, along with the state police also. I don't forget Joe Moon, Lodge 41. But we are going to go as one trailer bill that's going to attack all the problems that we see in 3653, as opposed to a repeal and replace approach or a bunch of separate trailer bills that would then need all separate votes to get it all undone, at least the problem areas. So the thought is we're going to put one bill together. The language should be together relatively soon and be introduced shortly thereafter. The state does take the lead on this stuff for the most part. So again, we have input. We're working hand in hand with the state. Don't think that they're going to dictate everything that's going to go on. We have a voice as loud as anybody else's in the conversation here. The current spring assembly has presented a litany of ridiculous legislative proposals by a lot of the same people who put forth this disastrous legislation. So we went through all of the law enforcement related items and basically opposed, support, or no position whatsoever if they don't have a direct impact. That information will be released probably next week. I don't want to get too far ahead of the game until we have official positions with the legislators. I don't want to put it out on social media first. I want them to know where we're at. And again, the state clearly is going to take the lead on a lot of those. That's just the way this whole show goes, as it should. That being said, March 24th, our general meeting was pushed back a week, in case you didn't know. So it's not Wednesday the 17th. It's going to be the 24th at noon. If you want a really latest update kind of thing, that'll be absolutely the place to come get it. Think about showing up. We need involvement. We need to get this thing really rock solid so the city has less and less pushback and the divide and conquer mentality that they've been so successful at for far too long. And that shows up in numbers at these meetings and voices. Negotiations. There are no dates for negotiations set as of right now. Unfortunately, the city attorney decided to send a letter last week trying to throw the blame on the FOP and my desk about the dragging of the feet, etc. Well, we responded the next day with a letter in return with our issues of why negotiations have dragged. A lot of the discussions that we've had thus far have been hindered by the city's repeated implementation of new policies that are clear violations of our contract, which resulted in unfair labor practice filings or grievances that went to arbitration, one after another, where they just unilaterally do whatever they want without negotiating, and it just slows down the whole process. They know full well that these things are supposed to be discussed at negotiations, but they're just refusing to do so. So in our response letter, we requested dates, as many as they wanted to put forth, starting with March 24th, or 22nd, I should say, Monday, and going forward from there. And they didn't respond for the rest of this week. As of right now, I have no response from the city for dates for March or even into April. So I guess we'll hopefully have a better update next Friday before the general on more dates. I expect them to respond sometime next week if they're really serious. On that note, they are slated to get reports of $1.9 billion in relief from the federal government in that COVID relief bill. It's safe to say that our chunk of retro money is going to probably come out of there because they only budgeted $100 million in their budget for our retro pay. Even if an arbitrator's to decide it, you can pretty much guarantee it's going to be almost triple that figure, just going by what the firemen had to pay out. So they can't cry poor anymore, that's for sure. Couple other things. The national conference, the biennial conference, is down in Indianapolis this year, August 15th through the 19th. By election, watch reps and unit reps are considered delegates. If you are a watch rep or you are a unit rep and you are planning on going to Indianapolis, whether it's for the whole conference or just down on the bus for the 19th, you need to let my assistant, Kathy Spiewak, know. She's making all the reservations and documentation for credentials. We need those as soon as possible so we can release the rest of the hotel rooms that we're saving. If you want to just come down and be part of the vote and see what it's about on August 19th, and you're not a unit rep or a watch rep, you still have a possibility of doing that. You can also call Kathy and give her your name, your star number, and information. We are entitled to bring up to 360 and change delegates to the conference to vote. We are certainly looking toward bringing as many as we can. You will have to burn your own comp time in order to go, just so you know. But if you want to see how the process works for national elections and go down to Indy for the day, we'll be providing buses down there, meals, votes, and then obviously a trip back. It's only a 2.5-hour bus ride roughly, so it is pretty much a solid day, 10-hour day maybe. But consider going. It's a pretty good experience. And if you're interested in getting involved in lodge business on a little more in-depth perspective, that's certainly a way to do it. The memorial for May, the National Memorial in D.C. has been postponed due to COVID. They could not get access to the mall, so they're pushing it back to October. The problem was that at best they were going to allow the family members of the fallen, but even that wasn't granted. So the National Lodge has pushed back the D.C. Memorial till October. We are going to follow suit. We have a very small venue here on our wall, and out of consideration for the 4 officers who passed away from COVID last year, we certainly don't want to be packing the family members and everybody into that little courtyard on top of each other come May if we can help it. So we're going to postpone ours to the week before. We'll set the date. It'll be posted everywhere, but the week before the national in D.C. in October. So stay tuned for that date. However, the state memorial is definitely going to go forward as of right now in Springfield. It's a pretty cool ceremony. The state police host a social function the night before. So again, those dates, when they're solidified 100%, will be on our website. It'll be on our Facebook page. Lastly, let me just say, I talked about it last week. If you're having issues for anything, life problems, marriage, whatever, the drinking, doesn't matter, whatever the problem is, call the lodge if you don't feel like calling EAP, but call somebody. We have on-call field reps who will respond. They can get you in contact with me if you want to speak to me. You are not alone. You will never be alone. We are going full steam ahead with our effort to try and have a greater voice in how all of the wellness, mental health wellness specifically, gets facilitated through the department. We want it to come through the lodge because we know the trust factor is an issue for many officers as far as what the city will and will not do. There was a press conference yesterday, or the day, I should say 2 days ago, I guess, where the superintendent was with Alexa James from NAMI. I've met her. I've talked to her before. I like her personally. I think she's a great professional. I just don't know if that's going to beat the beat all to end all. It's just one more possibility. But the reality is officers trust the lodge more than they trust the city. And the city has made recommendations for FOID cards to be revoked. Now, the superintendent said that officers will not lose their job. Well, when you take away their FOID card and you put them in a no-pay status, it might not technically eliminate their job or fire them, but it certainly has the same effect when you can't support your family or your children or even yourself at that point, instead of reaching out and doing whatever possible to get some help. That's the kind of goal we're going with. I will tell you this, our proposal was tendered to the city as far as us taking over the application of EAP, or at least supervising it on a bigger umbrella kind of scale. And the way we structured it is everybody knows our first vice president, Michael Meddy. Michael Meddy is a field rep up here now, and he would just be transferred over to that program. He'd be overseeing the implementation if the city grants us the proposal that we put forth. that would be his sole duty, is overseeing the EAP and wellness program as a whole, and try and make sure we don't lose any more officers to despair. With that being said, have a great week, a great weekend. Happy St. Patrick's Day, since I won't see you before then, and take care, everybody. Be safe.